I'm happy to be here today for our virtual conference, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the educational system and what the rights are of our homeless youth and our LGBTQ plus youth that we are working with. My job is to cover the 39 school districts in North Suburban Cook with a grant that's called the McKinney-Vento grant, which has been in existence for probably close to 30 years now, that helps level the playing field for families, children, and youth that are in our public educational school systems. The funding that we receive is from the federal level. The McKinney-Vento grant was written and put into place by two legislators, McKinney and Vento. So that's why they call it that. And I am the regional liaison that covers the North Suburban School District. So I cover 39 school districts in North Suburban Cook County, and I have a counterpartner that does West and South. And every single county in the state of Illinois has some type of regional liaison, as in my position, that works with the school districts within that county or that region. So it's a wonderful, wonderful job that is very rewarding, and also certainly makes a big difference for many of our students. And I am an advocate for the law. Sometimes, the families need some additional information about what the law is and how it is provided. And I'm also an advocate for the school district. And sometimes the school district needs some more information on what the laws are for the services that they need to provide. I offer free training. So if any of you are interested in me coming into your agency or school district, I am happy to do that, even now virtually as we've been doing. So that's my story, and I'll go ahead and get started. I want to talk a little bit about microaggression, which is kind of a little bit what this conference is about. And that's basically the way that we look at many of our children and youth and families that are not necessarily what our average families are that we work with in our schools and so on. And I think a lot of times I like to use this picture because it kind of shows you what many of our families and youth see when they come into school, even though that's not what we mean to portray, or that's not the way that we mean to be. But there's so much shame and embarrassment with the living situation that many of these families and children are in, and that's kind of how they feel we are looking at them. So basically, microaggression is a brief and commonplace verbiage that are verbal, behavioral, or environmental indignities, whether intentional or unintentional, that communicate hostile, derogatory, or negative, prejudicial slights and insults towards any group, particularly culturally marginalized groups, which certainly our LGBTQ plus community is part of. And I think the biggest part that we face is the unintentional. And that's, just some subliminal things that happen when we work with these youth in our schools that we don't realize that are happening because of our predetermined belief systems and so on. So I want to give you a little data on some research that I pulled up on this. At schools, LGBTQ plus students face harassment, both physical and verbal, which leads to many additional challenges. The students are 3 times as likely to miss school. 66% of the students feel discriminated against at school due to their sexual orientation, and only 10% of the students say that their school's anti-bullying policy included protections. And this is pretty significant of an issue in our schools. The most frequently cited factors that contribute to homelessness was family rejections based on sexual orientation and gender identity, with the second most common reason of being forced out by their parents after coming out. So sometimes our youth are kicked out of the home by their parents and family where they needed the most support, and sometimes because of their beliefs in the home, the children sometimes run away. And either one of these types of students qualify under McKinney-Vento, even if it is their choice to run away and the parents don't believe that they should run away or should not be in their home. They still have the right to be considered McKinney-Vento eligible in our schools. This report was from Williams Institute from the UCLA School of Law. So Chapin Hall University of Chicago did a report, and that alarmingly, there are 120% more likely to experience homelessness than other youth. The Williams Institute report, another one, indicated 40% of the homeless youth served by agencies identify as LGBTQ+. 43% of the clients served in drop-in centers are identified. 30% of the street outreach clients identified, and 30% of the clients utilizing housing programs identified as LGBTQ+. So this is really significant numbers, and it is a population that we work very, very hard in our schools to help assist and serve and find resources for, because they definitely are a targeted group that needs a lot of support. And we try to do our best with that. And with that being said, there is also a lot of concern about these students experiencing acts of sexual violence. There are almost 8 times more likely to experience acts of violence. Loyola researchers found that 56% of the transgender youth are involved in the sex trade. And especially with us being so close to the city of Chicago, we find we lose a lot of our youth in the high schools to the sex trade, to human trafficking, where they feel that they have a place to live. They feel that they're being recognized by someone is caring for them and supporting them, and gives them a false sense of hope and belonging. Our goal in our high schools, and my personal passion, is to ensure that this does not happen to our youth in our high schools, and that our youth finishes high school and do not drop out, which is a huge, huge issue. And to me, the most success that I feel in my job is to see our youth that are homeless completing high school and going on to other plans in life, be it college or university, or be it a job or some other type of trade, is so, so important. So as a whole, these studies confirm that our population of the LGBTQ plus individuals is disproportionately affected by violence, discrimination. They are alienated by a society that attacks their gender identity, sexual preferences, and physical health. So let's talk about what we do in the schools. When we have a child or a youth that is in a homeless situation, the first thing they have is a right to the school to attend. Prior to the law coming into effect, many times children would drop out of school, youth would drop out of school because they wouldn't really know where to go, or they would be bouncing around from school to school depending on where they're living or where they're staying. So when a student is identified as McKinney-Vento eligible under this act, the youth has the right to attend the school that they last attended, to continue on to that, or the school that they attended when they were last permanently housed. That's called the school of origin. They also have the right to attend the school where they're currently staying. If they moved in with a friend, or if they're in an agency or a program somewhere else, then they could go to the school wherever that agency is located. So we must make sure that our youth know what their rights are and that they have a choice of staying where they are or going to the school where they're currently staying. And again, they may still move around even if they're at the school where they're currently staying. Maybe they move around a number of times within the year from that placement. They still have the right to remain at that school. A little tricky, but the biggest part of this part of the law is that the students have a right to remain in school. And it's important that they realize that they have a couple choices of where they could be going to school. It doesn't mean by choice of school that they can go to any school anywhere. It's either where they were last living or where they are currently staying. Make sense? So the other big piece, obviously, is how do they get back to that school of origin? If they were going to school, say, in one of the high schools in Wheeling, and they ended up having to move with a relative or a friend or stay in the city somewhere, how do they get back to that school? The school districts must provide students with transportation to and from their school of origin at the parent, guardian, or student's request. So anytime we have an unaccompanied youth that is trying to get back to the school of origin, it's a responsibility of the school district to ensure that that transportation can be provided. So reasonable transportation is to be provided. So it could be in the form of a gas cards for parents or guardian or for the student themselves, a taxi, CTA voucher, extension of district bus routes, mileage reimbursement, etc. There is nothing in the law that says how that transportation is to be provided. But the important piece is that it's reasonable. And that means if in some cases, especially, out in the suburbs, Ventra passes may not necessarily work. If they're coming from a shelter on the south side of Chicago and they're trying to come into a school in Skokie, the Ventra pass isn't going to work because it'll take them about 2 hours of transportation one way to get back to the school of origin because of transfers on buses or trains or whatever, may have to be done through public transportation. In that case, a taxi or some other mode of transportation will make sense. That's one of the things I help with if a unaccompanied youth is having trouble getting back to that school or an agency is having trouble getting them back to the school. Please call me anytime. And we're kind of work through the rough edges with getting them back at school. So we had a new bill that came out last year too that is very awesome. And what has happened, the transportation costs are incredible for the school district sometimes. We have some families that are paying, or that the schools are paying $30,000 a year to transfer them back to the school of origin every day for that transportation. So we said to our legislators, it's crazy that we spend that kind of money for the children to get back to school, wouldn't it make more sense to see if we could try to keep them in housing in the school of origin and help support them that way? So the rental assistance homeless transportation bill does just that. It was House Bill 261. And so we have been able to keep some of our families back in the school of origin by helping them with possibly paying back rent, back electric, and so on. So let me go ahead and move on. So another right that our families have then, and our youth, is all the fees should be waived. We know that a free, a free public education isn't free. If any of you have kids, you know that we are always being nickeled and dimed for everything in schools. And our homeless students don't have the money for that. So all the fees should be waived in the school. Every student should receive a free lunch, and if there's a breakfast program, that should be also included. There's a handout that we've given you that kind of goes over the charges and the things that should be free for students, and that's just kind of a nice piece to have available. So with that being said, I'll go ahead and move on. An unaccompanied youth can come into school and enroll. They do not need to have legal guardianship. Someone from an agency can enroll them in school. A friend can enroll them in school, or they can enroll themselves. So sometimes there's a misconception that guardianship is needed. It is not needed. Legal guardianship is not required. Grandparent or caregiver can bring them into the school to have them attend. The district must provide immediate school access for the students, not waiting for records, not waiting for the health records to come through, not waiting for placement materials from the previous school. They are to go ahead and immediately enroll them and have them start in school. Whatever the process is for other students, it's an even playing field, and they should also receive the same services. So who is homeless? Under the McKinney-Vento laws, it's a little bit different. We all know that, any homeless family under the HUD definition would be those in emergency shelters or motels, domestic violence shelters, cars, campgrounds, and so on. But our biggest one is doubled up. If they move in with a friend or a relative, they still would be considered homeless under the McKinney-Vento Act, because they have lost their home and they're temporarily living with someone. The other handout that I have for you talks about that fixed, regular, adequate piece, and that's always what to include. If their living situation is fixed, regular, or adequate, if any of those pieces are missing, they would qualify as being McKinney-Vento under the Homeless Act. I'm running fast here. So since I just had a little bit of time left. We have set up in our office, we've had just such an increase in our homeless families due to the COVID-19, where many of our families have moved out of where they were staying or lost where they've been able to stay in a motel and so on. So we've set up a fund to be able to help these families. If you know of a family that's having difficulties and just out on the street, or a youth, please let us know, and we will try working with being able to find funding to help them get somewhere and get help. If you're willing to donate to our fund, we have it set up on our North Cook Intermediate Service Center Regional Office website, which is listed right on this page. And if you need any additional assistance or you have any questions, here is my information. Please feel free to contact me anytime. This is what I'm here for, and that's what my role is. I just wanted to double check if we had any questions from anyone. Otherwise, I will be turning it over to Connie.
Okay, good morning. Thank you guys for inviting me here. My name is Connie Jordan. I'm an attorney with the Cook County Public Defender's Office. I've been an attorney with the office now going on 30 years. I have done everything from juvenile law up to being in the murder task division. I am now in management. I got involved with going around and teaching about things you need to know about the law as a result of an increase in certain armed robberies, sexing, and other offenses that young people were getting involved with that they didn't necessarily know the consequences of, or that they didn't even know some of the issues were even illegal. So I thought it would be beneficial to go to the various schools and talk about the law and the laws that relate to clients to be more preventive as opposed to being reactive. But I'd rather prevent you from being in the system than to represent you once you're in the system. So that's one of the reasons I thought it was crucial that we start going out to educate our young adults, and even I've done presentations for their parents as well. So let's get started. Any questions, just put them in the box and I will answer them after we finish the presentation. So once again, it's Know Your Rights, and we can get started on the first hypothetical. And please feel free, I guess, to raise your hands, or I'm sorry, yes, we're doing a moment of silence first in honor of George Floyd and all of those who have been murdered at the hands of the police. And I'd appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, hypothetical number one. I'm actually 16 years old, and recently, okay, I have to get rid of my screen in order to see it better. Let's see. Okay. Why am I not? Okay. I'm trying to get back to the screen so I can read the hypothetical, and it's not letting me. Okay. I am 16 years old and recently downloaded Scruff. You guys make all these new terms relevant to older people like me. But anyway, just to see if there were other men who liked men in my area. I said I was 18 because I had to. I ended up matching with a guy who's 19, and we start talking, and I like him. He says he wants to meet up, and I don't know what to do because I really do want to meet him. What are my options? Could I get he in trouble if I go on this date? What could happen to me legally if the date goes bad? Should I tell him my real age? Let's start off with, should I tell him my real age? Absolutely, positively, yes. The reason being, at age 16, if something should happen in terms of a sexual relationship, and this person is 19 years of age, he could be charged with statutory rape. Why? Because at the age of 16, you still cannot consensually have sex. Even if you say, well, this is something I want to do, the law does not allow that. You can consensually have sex in the state of Illinois at age 17. However, in this particular case, if I were representing the 19-year-old, I would have a defense to that law. And the defense would be the actual scruff conversation, because the scruff conversation would clearly show that you gave this person the impression that you in fact were of consenting age, which is 18, and that they did not know that your age. With statutory law, it's kind of a iffy area because I have had cases where I've had clients charged with having sexual relations with a 14-year-old, but I've been able to win those cases because they met them in a club, and the club requires that you have ID saying that you're 21. So my argument was, how could that person have known that this person was 14 years old? And from the pictures that she actually took while she was at the club, there is no way in looking at those pictures and how she was made up that you would think she was 14 years old. She looked like she was in her 20s. And so we had the defense of saying he didn't know, and no, even though the law says no, or should have known. He should have known that she was an adult, was my argument, because of the simple fact that she was in a club that required you to be 21 years of age. So part of what I did in the defense was I brought in the bouncer of the club, I brought in the bartender of the club who had served her drinks, and I knew that they were not going to say, well, no, we didn't know she was 21, because if they had, then they're liable as well for letting, one, a 21-year-old in a club that serves alcohol, and two, the bartender who actually served her the alcohol. So the answer to the question is yes, you should tell your real age. If when you guys meet up, if you guys had met up, the 16-year-old had met up with the 18-year-old, and when they met up, or I'm sorry, with the 19-year-old, once they met up, if the 16-year-old had admitted, yeah, actually I'm 16, I'm not 18, and the 19-year-old still goes ahead with it, then yes, they are guilty. But if that 19-year-old never knew or had reasonably should have known that the 16-year-old was 16, then no, he can't be charged unless the state's attorney or the police can prove that he knew or should have known. Can you get in trouble? No, you really don't get in trouble, but you're setting somebody up to get in trouble. So there's no charge for you, criminal charge for you, but you are subjecting someone who you say that you really started to like this person, you're setting this person up to be criminally charged. Okay. We can go to hypothetical number 2. If I get pulled over by the police and I know for a fact that I've done nothing wrong, how do I respond? It's important to note that I am a Black trans woman and live in a predominantly white area. Okay, when you are not doing anything illegal and you know it, and you get stopped by the police, the first thing you need to remember and think about is this. Good police officers who follow the law do not stop people who are not breaking the law. So your first assumption should be that this is a police officer who thinks he has more power than he does have. So you know you're dealing with someone who has a very high ego and someone who's not necessarily following the law, because the law says there has to be probable cause. But this is a police officer who thinks that his hunches or his beliefs that something illegal is going on should usurp the Constitution. So have that in mind. And when you have that in mind, I ask you to have that in mind because good, bad, or ugly, this is your humbling period. Don't agitate someone who thinks they're above the law. So once he approaches your car or wherever, if he approaches you on the street, who are you? Where are you going? I'm sorry, officer, have I done anything wrong? I want to know where you're going. You may even want to answer it just to get rid of him. But the last thing you don't want to do is be confrontational. I had a case where a young man, he wasn't doing anything wrong. And the police officer approached him in a very not so nice way. And he said, where are you going? And instead of that, the situation escalated because the young man he was livid. He said, none of your damn business. Now my client was like 18, 19 years old. And the police officer said, he turned around and he became more aggressive and said, who the hell do you think you're talking about? And then my client started with, I'm talking to your punk, blah, 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 blah. And so then the officer ordered him out of the car. He said, I don't have to get out of my blah, blah, blah car. And it just got, it just escalated. And now he ends up with a class 4 felony, aggravated battery to a police officer, and assault of a police officer, and then a resisting arrest. As opposed to if the officer had said, where are you going, sir? I'm on my way home. I just left school. I just went home. Well, do you have a license? Yes, you have to give the license and insurance if they ask for it, whether you did something wrong or not. Officer, can I ask why I'm being stopped? If he doesn't tell you and he just runs your stuff, eventually, hopefully, he may return your stuff and they'll let you go on your way. But this is his way of showing his power. I have power over you. I can stop you. I can ask you questions. And if you don't bait him, it's a better chance of you just going on about your business. But he may say, yeah, well, next time, watch your speed or this, that. He may throw some reason up there as to why he stopped you that was really kind of bogus anyway. But you live to tell your story, is what I'm saying. And make sure if that is happening, you are looking at that badge, you're getting that number, and you're writing it down in your head. I don't suggest you necessarily write it down in front of him because it's just going to aggravate him. And I know this is the United States. We have rights. I get all of this. But I'm just saying, in the climate where police think that they can usurp the law, you need to be able to live to tell the story. And you can't do that if it gets more and more escalated. And I never want to see you like my client ended up being. And he didn't understand why. He's like, I'm going to be found not guilty because they had no reason to stop me. At the end of the day, he was found guilty because I said the juror's not going to like how you reacted. I get it. He shouldn't have stopped you. But you using all that profanity, you edging the cop on, and then when you get out of the car, you got in his face and said, you stopped me because I'm a black man and you can't stand it and I drive a better car than you. And the things he said on that video, where the cop would have been the one that looked bad, he turned it around to make himself look bad. And he just didn't understand it. And it hurt me because this is a kid who, he was accepted into college, on his way to college, but he escalated the situation. A cop did something they shouldn't have done, but at the end of the day, just get the information, and you can report that police officer. You have every right to report that police officer after it's all said and done, but don't agitate the situation because I want you to be able to live to tell that story. I don't want to see another George Floyd or Sandra Bland, because that's what happened in her case. It just got more and more escalated as they were arguing back and forth with each other, and it's not worth it. It may hurt you to have that moment of humility where you just have to hold it in because you know what they're doing is wrong. But at the end of the day, you get to report him and you get to say to his sergeant or the reporting authorities what he did to you and what was wrong. But you live to tell your story, and also you live not to have a criminal conviction on your background. Just don't escalate it by saying, oh, your rights and this and that. Don't escalate it. You know what your rights are. Just answer the questions and try to pass on. Okay, next hypo. I'm a sophomore. Recently, I've been questioned about my sexuality and found genuine support and some new friends, a bit older than me from school. I really like these friends, and it feels great to know people who've gone through similar things as me. Even though they like to park at the beach and smoke weed in the car, I never feel pressured by them at all to vape with them. So far, nothing bad has happened, but what if we got pulled over one of those times? Can I get in trouble even though I'm not getting high? And what kind of trouble could my friends get in? The fact that this scenario says you are a sophomore means to me that you're in high school. Absolutely, positively, there is no legal smoking of marijuana for high school students. You have to be 21 years or older in the state of Illinois to purchase and to possess marijuana. And you absolutely positively can never, ever, ever smoke marijuana in a car. No, because it's a motor vehicle. And it's just like drinking in the car. Even though liquor is legal, you cannot possess it in the car. You can't have open alcohol in the car. So yes, all of you guys, everybody in the car gets arrested. Okay, hypothetical number 4. I'm sorry. Yeah, we can go on 4. During a hearing, the judge repeatedly referred to my client as she, even though I've said multiple times that the client identifies as a male. When I approached the bench to discuss this, the judge dismissed me and said she would go by what her birth certificate says in their courtroom. Is the judge breaking the Illinois law by not respecting my client's gender identity? I wish it was a law against stupid people, insensitive people, but it's not. What you can do, everybody has a governing board. Anybody who is licensed has a governing board. So what I would do is I would report them to what's called the Judicial Inquiry Board. This has happened to me in the past. And so, thank you. So it's happened to me in the past. And what I did is I reported that judge, and the judge had to take sensitivity, racial and sexuality sensitivity classes. So the answer is it's not against the law, but you can report that judge. Thank you. Number 5. A police pulls me over for speeding, which I was doing a little bit. My mom was in the car, asked us for our papers. My mom is undocumented. Can I say anything to protect us? The state of Illinois is what's called a sanctuary state. Police officers in the state of Illinois are not allowed to ask you your immigration status. If they insist on it, you tell them you want a lawyer. The only paperwork you have to give them are your license and your insurance card. You do not have to answer questions about your documentation. So no, yes, you can protect it by saying, I would like a lawyer present. Just assert your right to have a lawyer present because they have no right to ask you that. Number 6. My friend is 18, dating a 17-year-old. Both started dating when they were minors, continue to date and are sexually active. My girlfriend's mom found out, angry that the daughter was gay. She even threatened that she was going to press charges on my friend for statutory rape. Can my friend really be charged with statutory rape? Okay, here's the problem. Your friend is 18 now. If the mom, but right now 17. At 17, you can have sex. You can consensually have sex. But at 17, if he was 17 and she was 16, technically that's statutory rape. But you'd probably have to go back and have her or she to testify that they actually started having, they were having sex when she was 16 and 17. So technically, I don't think the police would do anything about it because she's 17 years old right now, unless she did admit that, yes, she was 16 a year ago and he was 17 and they were having sex. So technically, they can be charged. Theoretically, I don't think the police officers would bother or the state's attorney to bother to charge them because of the age they currently are now. If she was 16 now, yes, they would charge them. Okay, we can do 7. I think I was sexually assaulted by a classmate when I was in the locker room. He said that he would tell people I was gay if I didn't consent to what he wanted. Is this a hate crime? Is it sexual assault? Yes, it is a hate crime. If you report it and it goes to court, courtrooms are open venue. And anybody can go into a court of law if this case goes to court. They can absolutely be charged, though, with criminal sexual assault, and they can be charged with intimidation and extortion. So the answer to that is yes, that is a crime.